Ladies and gentlemen, this is Lockheed's insane attack carrier, the CL-1201. This is by the channel Mustard. It's one of the Mustard video. He posts every few months or something, or like every quarter or something. But his videos are really good, like documentary style shit, right? I remember watching few Mustard videos. It's like mostly tech and engineering, which I really love. That's one of the reasons I started watching these military videos in the first place. I like the engineering and technological stuff behind it. I already knew about like how technology works, how science works in this area, because usually military does something first and then it like trickles down to everyday use and commercial use. So it's always interesting to see what kind of technology, what type of things military using. And one would think like, what does a plane has to do with everyday use? Like you have no idea what kind of technology would basically trickle down to everyday use, right? Even the smallest things. So yeah, I've seen one of the videos. Was it from Mustard or something? I don't remember exactly who was, but yeah, also talked about how there is like a plane carrier video, right? Just like how sea carriers are basically very the planes get attached to this cargo plane type of things, multiple planes, right? It makes it easier for the range and element of it, right? Because in today fighter jets have an issue because of the range. That's why usually if you have like an aircraft carrier, Navy aircraft carrier, you're like overpowered because you can go to a certain area and just like dominate from there. You literally taken a small city with you, right? So same concept, but for the air type of way. It's not gonna be same in a way because it's in the air. It's gonna have flaws, but it's like something, right? It's better. If you don't have access to sea and still have to do something here and there, this could be really beneficial. So yeah, let's do this one.
In 1969, the US government launched one of the most unusual projects in the history of aviation. It had only two objectives: determine just how large an aircraft could get, and demonstrate what it would mean for US air power. Spearheaded by the most secretive company in aviation, the result was the Lockheed CL-1201, a project that to this day remains shrouded in mystery. The 1960s saw breathtaking advancements in the field of aerospace. Aircraft were flying faster, higher, and further. And engineers...
I can see his name. Every time I see Blackbird, it's just so cool, right? Look at how it looks. It's so awesome. Look at how it's shaped. Even though we have like some insanely advanced looking shapes of the new planes and things, like stealth bombers are looking insane, right? The F-35s, F-22, they look awesome as well. But this something about this is just like really good, and also like the black color of black is just like, whoa, look at that.
Aircraft were flying faster, higher, and further, and engineers weren't just pushing the limits of speed. Aircraft were getting larger. The newly developed Lockheed C-5 was a massive machine weighing several hundred tons. Its power and range dwarfed anything before it. But it wasn't unrealistic to assume that aircraft could get many times larger. Advances in aerodynamics, exotic new materials, and even new forms of propulsion were just around the corner. Much of the breakneck pace in development was fueled by the Cold War. With the United States and Soviet Union vying to gain the upper hand,
Yeah, I'm sure there is a threshold where something is too big to be attainable, right? To like how powerful engine you can put in, how much longer runway you have, how much weight aerodynamically it is possible to be stable in the first place. I'm sure there's a limit. I guess that's what they were trying to do here.
Huge sums were spent developing spy planes that could fly faster and higher, and bombers that could carry more payload further. The aim was to reach any corner of the world as quickly as possible. To counter the expansion of Soviet power, the United States maintained a strategy of containment, and that meant maintaining a vast fleet of carrier battle groups that could respond to a crisis anywhere in the world. But as the Cold War intensified throughout the 1960s, no corner of the world seemed safe from Soviet agitation. To respond quickly and decisively, the United States looked to radical new technologies.
See, I don't want to pause too much, but that whole element of like how during the Cold War, Soviet Union was mostly close border, right? That's what they were, Iron Curtain and things. Well, America realized where the problem is, try to contain Soviet Union and basically, improving their fleet, improving their aircraft carriers. Well, Soviet Union didn't care for that much. Even today, like they have no aircraft carrier, just one or something, right? I'm pretty, was that sunk? I don't know, but yeah, basically like that. So they were kind of closed off because of it. While America just tried to like get better and better at that, trying to contain things. The only similarity I can see that in today's world would be China, also communist world, but they are not the same way how Soviet Union was. They are not closed border. If anything, they are like open business, right? They're taking things from capitalism in that way, open business. They're trying to improve themselves. They're getting better, and they're getting better. Actually, closing to the US's GDP. They're 18 trillion. US is 28, which is like a lot from 18, but China is 18. And the third one is, I guess, it's like 4 trillion or something. So China and US is like whole another level, right? And China is actually closing in on that. China is actually building a big navy fleet, unlike how Soviet Union was like didn't care about it. They were like closed off from everything, even the thinking. They were doing their own thing a lot, right? Not worrying about what US is doing, everybody else is doing. US is creating, a lot of aircraft carriers. Should we do that? They tried to do that, but let's not do that because they were closed off. They weren't doing much business with anyone. While China is not the case, right? So China is like what if Soviet Union, but bit lighter on the communism, and like what if more open business. That's what happening with the China, right? It will be really interesting to see where China goes from here.
By the 1960s, the Lockheed California company was developing the world's most advanced aircraft, pushing the technology of the time to its absolute limit. And they had worked with the Navy and Air Force to evaluate new technologies and develop the next generation of military aircraft, much of it highly classified. But in 1969, the company produced an unusual study that seemed out of place even among its cutting-edge research. It detailed an aircraft with monstrous proportions. At nearly
Yeah, Lockheed Skunk Works, right? It is become. It feels like it become like something like a thing that people used to like. Okay, from this communist Skunk Works, this came up. People use that as a word now. Why? Because Lockheed Skunk Works becomes such a famous deal like that. Because look at it, like Blackbird, U-2 spy plane, right? A lot of insane shit came from Skunk Works. Basically, this thing that they were thinking of, right? Sometimes I think about like, what if like Lockheed got the Lockheed Skunk Works or whatever got the order for like B-2 stealth bomb or something like that? Would they have made it even better, or would it have been worse? I don't know. That's like one for the thought type of way. But looking at their history, who knows what kind of insanity they would have created?
nearly 6,000 tons and with an 1,100-foot wingspan to serve as both a military transport and an airborne aircraft carrier. Yet today, surprisingly little is known about the project because Lockheed's study has vanished without a trace. Even the US Department of Defense has no record of it, as if it were somehow lost or erased from existence. But over the years, Lockheed's design has been cited in several other aerospace studies, including a report from 1982 that provides just enough detail to piece together one of the most unusual aircraft ever studied. With a payload capacity measured in the millions of pounds, the Lockheed CL-1201 would represent an entirely new class of aircraft, giving the United States the ability to deploy several hundred fully equipped troops and armament to anywhere in the world within hours, or launch dozens of heavily armed combat aircraft on a moment's notice. And Lockheed's engineers outlined a scenario where these capabilities would be vital for the United States. They envisioned an organized uprising halfway across the globe, instigated by the Soviet Union. Responding to a call for assistance, the US would typically deploy a carrier group and Marines to help stabilize the situation. But in Lockheed's scenario, the Mediterranean would be blocked off and nearby foreign bases would be unavailable. So the 1201 would provide the only means for a rapid strike with a sizable force launched directly from the continental United States. And to explain how this would all work, I've brought on a former BBC News presenter.
Okay, they've named it attacked aircraft carrier, but they should have called it flying aircraft carrier because it's already aircraft carrier on like ocean. They were like, okay, wait a minute, are they talking about ocean or are they talking about the air thing? Who knows?
Well, hello there. This video cassette will help you learn about the Lockheed CL-1201. With the new 1201, Lockheed will set a new standard for engineering innovation. But you probably have questions about how it'll all work, so let's jump right in.
Within hours of receiving a call for assistance, an attack carrier would be dispatched from an airbase in Georgia, bound for an aerial staging area over the Mediterranean.
Armed with 24 aircraft and long-range cruise missiles, the carrier's role would be to establish air superiority and function as a central command center.
7 logistics support aircraft would also be dispatched to rendezvous with the carrier over the Mediterranean.
The logistics support aircraft, or LSAs, are giant aerial transports, each capable of carrying up to 400 combat-equipped troops, 472 specialized crew, and over 1,000 tons of mechanized equipment, armament, and supplies to last for 30 days.
All 1201s would be equipped with conventional landing gear and operate from paved runways. But for an aircraft of this size, the runway requirements would be absolutely massive. So engineers proposed a novel solution.
For maximum operational flexibility, the carrier and LSAs will be fully equipped for short takeoff and landings. Dozens of auxiliary turbofan engines will be housed within the wings and forward fuselage, each capable of delivering an impressive 82,000 pounds of vertical thrust.
4 enormous high-bypass turbofans would supply an additional 600,000 pounds.
Yeah, I think you need to worry about initial torque and like how faster you could make it run, because that would be the problem. Longer wingspan implies that after a certain speed, like you wouldn't have that much problem taking off, but getting to that speed, right, you would need enormous amount of like power and thrust basically. Damn, that is some insane. Only thing I can think of right now is that they probably have this and they're not telling anyone, because what's with all the secrecy and things, like unless it's like negligence, right? Where people just like forgot about some like misplaced document and then I don't know where that went type of shit. That would be like, okay, that would be disappointing, not gonna lie. But imagine this, like CL-1201, somehow they create this kind of like a semi-stealth type of thing with radio jammers and things, just to bring this aircraft carrier close enough where like SAMs and things is not a problem, but it can be shot down, and it has a lot of F-22s on board, like 8-9 F-22s, right? Imagine the power. F-22's biggest downside is just that the range. That's why most of the time people just use it. USA just use F-18s, right? Because F-22s on like aircraft carriers, basically the Ocean one, it's not really possible. That's why F-35 was created as well with the B variant, right? But imagine this with a lot of F-22s on board. Whoa, that would be overpowered.
Of thrust and allow the massive 1201s to cruise at about the same speed as a modern jet transport. But once over the staging area, the carrier and LSAs would need to loiter for extended periods, remaining continuously airborne for up to 30 days. So Lockheed's engineers turned to another unconventional solution.
At the heart of every CL-1201 is a 30-foot diameter, 18,000 megawatt nuclear reactor, similar to the kind already.
Oh, I knew it. Yeah, let's bring the nuclear reactor, man. Fallout, basically, right? This is what happens when you give military a lot of like access to things, right? That Northrop created that Millman van, right? I saw the video from Federation. Imagine if like the Northrop and like this Lockheed just suddenly like, what if we make cars? Let's put nuclear reactor on it. Let's create Fallout, the basically video game world where everything is just nuclear reactor. I know the engineering issue behind that, on like commercial cars, nuclear reactor, but still, like when technology gets better type of way, I see that day coming, right? But this is basically, oh fuck it, let's put nuclear. Why not? Submarines have it. Why not this?
Used on nuclear submarines, only much larger. The Air Force and Atomic Energy Commission have spent decades testing systems for nuclear-powered aircraft engines. Now these technologies will finally come to a head. During takeoff and landings, the 1201's cruise engines will run on standard jet fuel, and it's only above 16,000 feet that they will be switched to nuclear power. Each engine is fitted with a heat exchanger and can operate on either jet fuel or heat from the reactor. Coolant loops both inside and outside of the containment vessel will transfer heat from the reactor core while safely containing radioactive materials. Radiation exposure will be limited by shielding, and the reactor's containment vessel would be housed inside an impact-absorbing structure. A minimum 16,000-foot altitude for nuclear-powered operations was selected on the basis that it would provide sufficient time for reactor shutdown in the event of an accident. Engineers are confident that the reactor will be fail-safe even in a head-on impact with a granite mountain, assuming a prior 20-second shutdown warning. Now, how's that for safety?
Along with the carrier and LSAs, a number of conventional jet transports would also need to make their way to the staging.
Yeah, I see that problem. Let's put nuclear reactor on plane and then it crashes or some SAM or something hits it. Everything's fucked around the area, right? Look, man, here's what I think about that. Any technology requires time to perfect it. This is just one of those things, right? In order for some ingenious innovation to come along, you need to do it, right? People hate electric cars, but there will be a day where you have no option but electric cars, right? Or even if like something like a hydrogen power comes, it's gonna, I'm pretty sure they're just gonna supply it through electricity, right? Electricity will be the motor will be electric. So electric power is the future in that way. So even if you hate electric cars, a lot of people buying electric cars will help these companies to push for innovation, like how to make this better. Compare iPhone 1 to what iPhone 15 now, it's a massive difference, right? I remember iPhone 1, how it was. Like, it was great for the time, but you can't compare it to today. Like, it's really different, right? Shit like that, right? So you need time for innovation. This is some similar thing. Yes, it's a problem. 20-second warning, like, yeah, that could be a problem in the air, right? Like, if you get hit, I guess you just have to operate in a way that it doesn't get hit, right? But yeah, eventually people will, like, those seconds will chop off slowly. You create system that instantly, like, makes the nuclear reactor and nuclear elements basically, non-threatening, or, like basically not a problem, even if some kind of crash happens, right? So Chernobyl shit doesn't happen. But you can do a lot of those things, but you need time to innovate. You need time for experimentation, right? You can't just say like, oh, this is bad, like put it away. A lot of places around the world, like nuclear power plants are getting shut off because people are afraid. Compared to everything, it's one of the safest one, especially the modern power plants, the safest one. Most of the reason they're doing that because of like maintenance cost and shit like that, but I don't know. You need time for that technology to get better, I don't know. But yeah, the fusion, nuclear fusion power is becoming somewhat possibility. There was like a experiment that was like successful a few years ago, right? So a fusion nuclear, which is like even better, right? Might be a possibility in the future, stable nuclear fusion, who knows? So that would solve a lot of problems in itself.
Area to support the assault force.
Over the staging area, the LSAs would be joined by smaller military transport aircraft referred to as medium inter-theater transports, or MITs. The MITs would rendezvous with the LSAs, docking in mid-flight to transfer troops, weaponry and supplies. The MITs would then connect to the LSAs via a tow line and remain on standby.
The 1201's blended wing design would make it an ideal platform for mid-air docking and transfer. And with the assault force in place, combat operations would begin immediately.
Working in conjunction with Allied forces on the ground, carrier-based attack aircraft would clear enemy defenses to establish a secure airfield. Next, the MITs would begin shuttling troops and equipment between the LSAs and the airfield, protected by carrier-based fighter aircraft.
Aircraft this large would be high-value targets, but Lockheed's engineers weren't expecting adversaries to get anywhere near them.
By operating at 30,000 feet and at least 600 nautical miles from hostile forces, it would be virtually impossible for the enemy to approach unobserved. But should the enemy attempt to engage, they'd have to contend with an impressive range of counter-air aircraft, long and short-range missiles, and of course, laser weapons.
After establishing a sizable presence on the ground, American troops working with Allied forces could stabilize the situation with
laser weapons nowadays, this was back then, but nowadays laser weapons are becoming like accurate and like viable enough to be like counter attack weapon. to basically take out drones and things. I can see that it's going to be implemented soon, I'm guessing, right? Especially with the Ukraine thing, where like even small Amazon drones are a problem. If you have laser weapons, and I'm pretty sure America already has precision targeting system enough in this way to even target those small Amazon drones, right? So with the laser, you can really make that better, right? So a lot of threats, smaller missile threats, smaller drone threats would not be a thing. While plane like this would not have a problem with smaller drones. Come on, like how is it going to reach that size? But yeah, any other drones, right? Military drones, ICBMs and things. I can see how laser missile working, right? Laser working, and then like Aegis type of system, if that is on the sea level or whatever, working, right? You can have all of this technology working together. You can make this carrier safe, right? If you don't take it out of its safe zone, it could work, right? And like I said, like our jamming technology that already makes it harder for to target. Don't let this thing get that close, because whole point of this is to be a carrier, right? You're supposed to carry this close enough where something like F-22 can go and do its thing.
Within 30 days, and reopen the Mediterranean Sea for a larger, conventional ocean-going naval force.
I hope this video has proved informative. As you can see, the CL-1201 is an entirely new class of aircraft and a new means of delivering a rapid response strike to anywhere in the world, keeping America and her allies safe.
It's not clear what prompted such an unusual design study. Was it a strategic threat, a need to assess the limits of aerospace technology, or was Lockheed simply keeping its summer interns busy? What's clear is that there are many unanswered questions, not just technical and engineering.
Oh man, even today, look at how you have a problem. If you want to go to like certain countries, if you want to provide support, you have to use something like F-18s and like Navy aircraft carriers. And you can't use F-22s and things, right? For this particular reason. This would basically remove all those limitations. There's many places where like even like a Navy aircraft carrier might not be like good enough, right? The whole reason for 6th generation, if I remember correctly, is for the China and like Pacific, right? So the range and everything is like thinking in that direction. You have to specify a lot of things if you want to create next version of things, like which area we are thinking about this might be used. If you have this, you don't have to think that much, right? Because you can just take this anywhere close enough, safe zone, and just deploy something like F-22s or like 6th generation air dominance plane, whatever that's going to be. So this kind of like removes a lot of element. Yes, there's a threat because it's an airborne thing. Something could target it, but you can, with the Aegis defense system and all Patriots and things like that, you can really make it safe enough zone where it can operate.
But basic questions like how the fighters were supposed to be rearmed during combat, or how they would have docked with massive wake turbulence coming off the carrier's wings. The deeper you dig, the more bizarre it seems to get. But without Lockheed's original report, we'll probably never get the answers. And in the context of the Cold War, the 1201 is just one of hundreds of highly speculative designs, many of which weren't really supposed to answer questions, but help find the questions yet to be answered. But even among these countless conceptual designs, the 1201 stands out as one of the most unusual ever produced. On an early morning in February 1993, something extraordinary lights up the sky over Europe. A mysterious beam of light brighter than a full moon. And it moves silently for thousands of kilometers, from the southern coast of France all the way to Belarus. On the ground, it looks like an anomaly, but it's part of an experiment so unusual, it seems straight out of science fiction.
You're talking about something which is several miles across.
There could eventually be a whole network of these cosmic spotlights.
They will transform perpetual night into daylight.
Decades ago, Soviet scientists set out to create eternal sunlight. And it's hard to understand why, years later, no one seems to remember. You can learn about the incredible Zanami project in my latest video right now on Nebula. Nebula is where you'll find hours of exclusive mustard.
Yeah, that's an insane thing, right? Like China is also like creating what happened to that? China creating like artificial sun, right? Nuclear powered sun now. Like that's itself like China doesn't have great history of like safely removing satellites. Let's just say now they want to create a sun. I'm not doubting their capabilities. Sure, they could do it. Like 18 trillion economy, of course they could do it. But let's hope they think about safeties first, because that's a problem right there. But yeah, there you go. They're trying to create some sun type of artificial sun or something. Is it going to be really something useful or just something to flex on? Who the fuck knows? But yeah, Soviet probably tried some similar thing. I think it was, judging from that, it's probably some kind of mirror type of shit. But yeah, there you go. That's some insane. Humans can do some insane shit. Every time I learn about it, it's just like, I'm surprised every time. But yeah, this CL-1201, I don't, even to this day, I think like they must have something like this there, because it's either that or negligence, because why would there be so many secrecies, right? And I can see the application of this. Maybe this is not the best way to do it, so that's why they're not doing it. They're finding some other options, but I can see this working, right? The whole, like, can our jets get there element would get removed, because Navy aircraft carriers can get a lot of place. Most of the surface is like ocean. Why the fuck not? But there is some like hard to get places where this would negate it. But then again, you could just argue, why not just have F-35s with like some more, fuel tank? Just use that from like an aircraft carrier, F-35Bs. Sure, you could kind of do that, but why not? And sixth generation of plane, I'm pretty sure they're trying to build that with a decent enough range, and maybe take off from a aircraft carrier. I don't know, but something like that. Alright, well, if you like my next one, don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you next time.